My boyfriend Nate sent me a breakup text at 3 a.m. on a Tuesday, after 2 years together. The message claimed he needed to focus on himself and that our goals were misaligned. We had been planning to share an apartment once my lease expired in September. We'd already toured potential apartments and debated furniture choices. Just 3 weeks prior, I'd gifted him a Citizen watch for our 2-year anniversary. He wore it daily and frequently shared photos of it online. The next day, I called him twice, mostly to mess with this fool. Both calls went straight to voicemail, which was honestly amusing. I followed up with 4 texts asking for a conversation. I checked his social media. He'd removed me as a friend on Facebook and locked his Instagram profile. Typical move from someone who thinks he's outsmarted everyone. Wednesday morning, my colleague Zara showed me something on her phone during our lunch break. "Guess where Nate is," she said, excited to share what she thought was fun news about my boyfriend. His Instagram stories were tagged in Madrid, Spain. The first story showed a hotel room with 2 neatly made beds and luxurious linens. The second featured a breakfast spread with 2 espressos and croissants. The third showed Nate wearing my anniversary watch, grinning at the camera. I recognized the hotel instantly. We'd saved it months ago while planning a trip we never took. We'd spent weeks researching flights and reading reviews for that exact vacation. The trip cost $2,800 per person, based on our detailed budget spreadsheet. Zara swiped to the next story, still thrilled to share what she thought was a cool travel update. A woman with red hair and a lip piercing was tagged. Lila. I knew her. She was a marketing assistant at Nate's company. She was 23. I'd met her at his office Christmas party last year. The final story showed them at a plaza in Madrid, snapping selfies together. Lila was wearing a dress I'd added to my online cart but skipped because it cost $170. Nate had his arm around her waist, mimicking the pose we used for our photos. Zara looked at me, expecting me to be excited about Nate's trip or ask about the woman. I just thanked her and returned to my desk. I saved screenshots of everything before the stories vanished and sent them to my friend Mia. "Check out this total loser," I texted. Nate had blocked me on Instagram but left his stories public for others to see. This idiot thought he was clever, but he had no clue how ridiculous he looked. Thursday afternoon, I got a Venmo request from Nate for $42, labeled car fuel THX. He looked out loud. He'd blocked me everywhere except Venmo, the app for money transfers. This moron actually expected me to send him cash while he was in Spain with another woman. I called Mia right away. "You won't believe this. This clown's asking for gas money while he's in Madrid." Mia cracked up too. We both knew he was about to face reality. I kept refreshing their Instagram stories because this disaster was too entertaining to ignore. Each new post was more absurd than the last. They thought they were living their dream in Madrid while he had the nerve to ask me for money. Friday night, they posted photos from a rooftop bar in Madrid that I recognized from our shared travel board. Lila was wearing the watch Nate usually wore on his left wrist. My watch. The one I'd saved for months to buy by skipping restaurant lunches. It hung loosely on her wrist, too big for her small frame. I couldn't stop laughing at how silly she looked wearing a men's watch that didn't fit. Sunday evening, they flew back to Seattle. Nate posted a photo at Seattle-Tacoma Airport with the caption, "Back to normal life." The watch was nowhere in sight. He probably gave it to his new girlfriend as a romantic gesture. How creative. Monday morning, I checked Lila's Instagram highlights since her profile was fully public. Among her Madrid trip stories was something that stopped me cold. She'd posted a screenshot of a Venmo payment with text about finally funding their dream trip. It showed $1,923 sent to Nate, labeled Madrid Fund, time-stamped Monday, 11:47 p.m., 5 hours before his breakup text to me. I sent the screenshot to Mia with laughing emojis. This genius had left a digital trail of his entire plan. Thursday morning, a week after the breakup text, I got another Venmo request from Nate for $28, labeled Coffee Funds. You know you're down with the same emoji he used when we were together. I stared at his profile photo, where he was still wearing my watch, and burst out laughing. This guy thought he could use me as his personal bank after everything. But here's what this fool didn't know. I had a plan to make him regret crossing me, and when he came crawling back, he'd wish he'd never tried to play me. First update. Exactly 1 week after Mr. I Need to Find Myself sent that pathetic breakup text, I decided I'd had enough. This guy thought he could dodge my calls and texts while begging for gas money. Time for a wake-up call. I called his office and asked to speak with Nate about a personal matter involving shared expenses. The receptionist connected me immediately. When he answered, I could hear him rushing to a private spot. He started with a nervous chuckle, saying he was too busy with meetings to talk. I told him that was funny since he had plenty of time for Instagram stories and Venmo requests. The silence was perfect. Then he got defensive, saying we needed to handle the breakup maturely and give each other space. I asked him directly about Lila and the Madrid trip. He had the audacity to claim I was imagining things and that Lila was just a colleague who happened to be traveling at the same time. When I mentioned the $1,923 Venmo payment, he went quiet for a solid 30 seconds. Then he said it was just him reimbursing her for covering his share of team dinners over months. I laughed so hard I nearly choked. Team dinners costing $1,900? He really thought I was that naive. He kept insisting I was making connections that didn't exist and that my actions were worrying. When I asked about my watch, he claimed he forgot he was wearing it and would return it soon. Forgot a $450 watch. I told him I wanted it back by Friday and that we needed to meet in person to sort out our shared items. He agreed, but only in a public place. Wednesday afternoon, my sister Clara called me, freaking out. Our mutual friend Leo had seen Nate's Instagram stories and told his girlfriend, who told Clara's roommate, who told Clara. Small world, huh? But here's the kicker. Leo said that at a work happy hour in February, Nate complained about how high maintenance I was and how I always wanted expensive outings. This was news to me since I paid for most of our dates and skipped dinners out to save for his anniversary gift. Clara was furious and wanted to confront him at his place right then. I had to stop her because watching this guy dig his own grave was far more satisfying than letting my sister rip him apart. She kept saying she never trusted him and always thought he was taking advantage of me. Classic sister move. But she wasn't wrong. Thursday morning, Nate texted me to push our meeting to Saturday, claiming work was hectic. The nerve of this guy to think he could dictate terms after everything. I told him Friday at 7 p.m. at the cafe near his office, or I'd gladly discuss everything at his workplace instead. Suddenly, his schedule cleared. But it gets better. Thursday afternoon, I'm at Costco picking up essentials when I spot Lila in the skincare aisle. She saw me, froze, and tried to hide behind a display of moisturizers. I walked up and said we should talk since we clearly had a lot in common now. She started apologizing, saying she didn't know Nate had a serious girlfriend until after Madrid. I asked how that was possible since she met me at the Christmas party. She claimed she thought I was a casual date and that Nate said we'd broken up months ago. When I showed her the Venmo screenshot from 5 hours before the breakup text, she went pale. She rambled about how Nate had been planning the trip for weeks, saying he needed a break after a toxic relationship. Toxic relationship? This guy called me toxic while wearing my gift and using her money for his getaway. Lila kept saying she wouldn't have gone if she'd known the truth and felt awful. I told her I didn't care about her guilt. What I cared about was that she was being played just like me. When I asked about my watch, she got nervous. Apparently, Nate told her it was a family heirloom from his grandfather. This lying jerk gave my anniversary gift to another woman with a fake story about dead relatives. The conversation lasted maybe 12 minutes, but I got more info from her than from Nate in a week. She said he was angling for a promotion and thought dating someone from work would boost his image. She also mentioned he'd been eyeing pricey apartments he couldn't afford and complaining about needing more cash. When I got back to work Friday, I told Zara the full story. She was stunned and felt terrible for showing me the Madrid stories, not knowing they were evidence of cheating. I told her it wasn't her fault. She had no way of knowing he dumped me via text. When I got home, I called Clara and filled her in. She started connecting dots I hadn't even seen. Nate had been asking about my savings and my raise timeline at work. He'd been curious about my family's finances and whether my parents would chip in for a house down payment. Clara reminded me that last month he'd suggested I look for better paying jobs or ask for a raise. It all started adding up in the worst way. This guy didn't just want space. He'd been plotting his exit while trying to upgrade his lifestyle. The Madrid trip wasn't a spur-of-the-moment escape. It was a calculated move with someone he thought could boost his career and bankroll his plans in ways I couldn't. Friday arrives, and I'm at the cafe watching Nate stroll in 20 minutes late, looking like he'd rather be anywhere else. He sits down and launches into a rehearsed speech about how we wanted different things and would be happier apart. I let him finish before pulling out my phone and showing him every screenshot, the Madrid photos, Lila's Venmo payment, his Instagram stories, everything. He accused me of stalking him and invading his privacy by saving his public posts. When I mentioned my talk with Lila, he flipped out, saying she had no right to share their private business. Then came the real gem. I asked if he'd been planning this for weeks. He tried to gaslight me, saying I was paranoid and inventing conspiracies. When I brought up Lila's claim that he said we'd broken up months ago, he blamed her for being young and dramatic. This guy pinned his lies on a 23-year-old. I demanded my watch back immediately, and he said he'd left it at home. Convenient. When I said I'd wait while he got it, he claimed he had dinner with his parents and couldn't miss it. I asked if his parents knew about his Madrid trip and new girlfriend. His silence said it all. We argued for another 25 minutes, getting nowhere. He deflected while I laid out facts. Finally, I told him he had until Sunday to return my watch and act like an adult. As I left, he had the gall to ask if I'd cover his coffee Venmo request. That night, venting to Clara, she dropped a bombshell. Her friend Ryan works in HR at a firm that collaborates with Nate's company. Clara mentioned our situation, and Ryan said there'd been whispers about inappropriate workplace relationships at Nate's office. Nothing confirmed, but enough chatter that HR was watching. Suddenly, I realized Nate wasn't just a fool playing two women, he was risking his career for this office fling. And men like Nate get desperate fast when their professional image is at stake. Sunday passes with no word about my watch. Monday morning, I wake up to 4 missed calls and 3 voicemails from unknown numbers. The first voicemail is Nate, using a friend's phone, begging me to call back about something urgent. The second, also Nate, says he has my watch and wants to return it but needs to explain something first. The desperation in his voice told me everything. Whatever game he thought he was playing, he was realizing he wasn't the only one with moves. Reddit, I had a feeling this clown was about to learn what happens when you underestimate the wrong woman. Wednesday's meeting was going to be wild.
Second update.
I thought I was prepared for Wednesday, but this absolute disaster of a person outdid himself. Grab some snacks, this is a long one. Wednesday arrives, and I'm in my car outside the cafe, watching Nate pace the sidewalk for 15 minutes before I get out. When I approach, he starts with a speech about how thankful he is that I agreed to meet and how he's been reflecting on our last talk. I cut him off, saying I'm here for my watch and an explanation for why he thought Venmo requests while vacationing in Europe were okay. He pulls out a small box from his coat and places it on the table like he's doing me a favor by returning my own property. He says the Madrid situation was complex and I'm missing the full story. According to Nate, Lila had planned the trip for months and invited him as a friend when her original travel buddy bailed. He claimed he only went because he thought our relationship was rocky and he needed clarity. When I asked why he never mentioned these doubts before dumping me, he said he didn't want to upset me. He insisted nothing romantic happened with Lila until after our breakup, which was technically true since he waited 5 whole hours after taking her money to text me. When I brought up the watch, he got defensive, saying Lila liked it during the trip, so he let her wear it temporarily because she forgot her jewelry. He claimed he never meant for her to keep it and retrieved it once he saw I was upset, asked why he told Lila we'd broken up months ago and that I was toxic. His face flushed, and he stammered that Lila must have misheard him. He swore he'd never badmouth me, especially not to a coworker. When I said I had Lila's exact words, he got agitated, claiming she was stirring drama. Every fact I presented was met with a flimsy but technically possible excuse. He kept saying he cared about me and didn't mean for things to end this way. When I asked why he kept requesting money if he cared, he said the Venmo requests were his way of staying connected because he missed me. That's when it hit me, and I started recalling every time over the past 6 months he'd asked for cash. The $750 for urgent car repairs he couldn't delay. The $400 for his share of a friend's bachelor party because his paycheck was late. The $300 for emergency dental work his insurance wouldn't cover. The $550 to help his parents with their rent when his dad was supposedly unemployed. Each time, he had a reasonable excuse for needing money immediately. Each time, I sent it without question because I trusted him. I never asked for proof or wondered why his emergencies always lined up with my paychecks. I asked how much I'd given him over the past year, and he squirmed. He claimed they were loans he'd always planned to repay once his finances stabilized. When I pointed out he never mentioned repayment plans or acknowledged the amounts as debts, he said he assumed I knew he'd handle it eventually. But here's the wild part. During my Costco talk with Lila, she'd mentioned Nate was super generous in Madrid, insisting on paying for everything despite her offering to split costs. She also said he bought her parents lavish gifts the weekend before the trip, a $350 bottle of scotch for her dad and a designer scarf for her mom. I did the math and realized I'd given Nate nearly $2,800 over 6 months for fake emergencies. Money he never repaid or mentioned again. Money he used to fund his lifestyle and impress others while claiming he was broke. When I brought this up, he got defensive, saying I was twisting normal relationship support into something shady. He said couples help each other financially, and it was petty to track every cent. He claimed he'd do the same for me if our roles were reversed and that my focus on money made him uneasy. I said what made me uneasy was him lying about emergencies to take my money while funding romantic. I pointed out there was no misunderstanding about him requesting cash for fake emergencies while planning a romantic trip funded by his coworker. He said I was obsessing over details instead of seeing the bigger picture, that our relationship had issues, and we both needed space. When I asked what issues, since he'd never raised any before, he listed complaints I'd never heard. Apparently, I was too controlling because I liked planning ahead. I was too pricey because I enjoyed occasional nice dinners. I was too serious because I talked about our future. Every complaint was about things he'd actively encouraged when we were together. But the kicker was him calling me expensive when I'd been funding his lifestyle for months. This guy, who cried broke and begged for loans, was now saying I was financially demanding. The mental gymnastics were unreal. He tried to rewrite our entire relationship to justify his actions, saying he'd felt trapped for months but didn't know how to tell me because I wouldn't listen. When I asked for examples of times I ignored his concerns, he couldn't provide any. He just said I should have sensed his unhappiness and that healthy relationships don't need constant problem-solving talks. When I said healthy relationships also don't involve lying about emergencies to get money, he got mad, saying I was manipulating him by bringing up support he never explicitly asked for, except I had screenshots of every Venmo request and text where he detailed his urgent needs. After 2 hours of this nonsense, I was done. I took my watch, told him I never wanted to see him again, and headed to my car. That's when he grabbed my arm and said we weren't done talking. I turned and said if he touched me again without permission, our next talk would be with a cop present. He backed off, apologizing and saying he was just frustrated. When I got home, I called my parents because I needed to talk to someone who'd known me longer than Nate. My mom answered and could tell something was wrong.
I speed everything.
She listened quietly and then asked one question. Did I think this behavior came out of nowhere, or had I ignored signs because I wanted the relationship to work? That hit hard because there were signs. So many I'd brushed off because I thought they weren't worth fighting over. My dad got on and asked what I'd do next. I said I didn't know. Part of me wanted to expose him publicly, and part wanted to move on and forget him. He said moving on didn't mean accepting bad behavior and that sometimes closure comes from ensuring consequences. That night, I couldn't sleep, thinking about something Lila said at Costco. Nate had bragged about improving his savings by cutting unnecessary costs. The same guy who begged for emergency money was telling his new girlfriend he was financially responsible. Thursday morning, I woke to 6 texts from Nate sent between 1 a.m. and 3 a.m. The first apologized for grabbing my arm, swearing he'd never hurt me intentionally. The second blamed work stress and family pressure for his behavior. The third said he still had feelings for me and regretted how things ended. The fourth admitted the Madrid trip was a mistake and that he'd been trying to convince himself he liked Lila when he was really scared of committing to me. He said seeing my anger made him realize he'd run from something good instead of addressing his issues. The fifth message suggested couples counseling or a break to work on ourselves before deciding if we were truly done. This guy who dumped me via text and jetted off with another woman was now pitching reconciliation, showed Clara the texts, and she pointed out they were all about what Nate wanted and felt, with no acknowledgement of how his actions hurt me. Even his apologies were just excuses dressed up as remorse. She noted he never took real responsibility. Everything was a mistake, a misunderstanding, or someone else's fault. Friday afternoon, my mom called, asking if I'd heard from Nate's parents. Apparently, his mom called mine, asking if there was anything they should know about why Nate seemed so off lately. His mom said he'd been acting strange since his vacation, and she was worried. My mom, ever diplomatic, said Nate and I had split and suggested they ask him directly what was going on. Nate's mom also mentioned they were expecting to meet Lila soon, because Nate said he was dating a new coworker who might join them for Sunday dinner. This guy was introducing his rebound to his family, while texting me about counseling. I realized Nate wasn't just manipulating me, he was lying to everyone to keep his narrative straight. His parents thought he was happily moving on. Lila probably thought they were serious. I was supposed to believe he was confused and wanted to reconcile. And his workplace was investigating whether his relationship with Lila broke company rules. But the real puzzle piece was Lila saying Nate had talked about asking his parents for help with a new apartment security deposit. The same parents who likely didn't know he'd been taking thousands from me for fake emergencies while planning to leave me for someone who could boost his career. He built a fragile web of lies and was scrambling to keep it intact. But what he didn't see was that I was done being a pawn in his scheme. Sunday dinner with his parents was going to be spicy, especially since no one there would have the full truth about who Nate really was. Reddit, it was time for this clown to learn what happens when you play chess with someone who's been bankrolling your life while you test your moves on someone else. Final update. Reddit, I'm grinning ear to ear because this guy got exactly what he had coming. You told me to brace for the worst, and I thought I was ready, but this train wreck delivered in ways I couldn't have orchestrated. Buckle up, this is the most satisfying revenge story you'll read this year. Saturday night, I'm debating whether to block this loser or take action on his lies. Then Clara calls with intel from her friend Ryan, who's in HR at a firm tied to Nate's company. Apparently, a formal complaint was filed about an employee breaking workplace rules with relationships and expense reports. Someone at Nate's job had been tracking his Madrid trip and his fling with Lila. This explained his panic at our cafe meeting. He wasn't just worried about rumors, he was facing potential termination. His begging not to make things worse suddenly clicked. Sunday afternoon, I decided I was done. I drove to Nate's parents' house, knowing Lila would be there for their big family dinner introduction. I didn't have a grand plan, just a need for everyone to know the truth about their golden boy. His mom opened the door and seemed glad to see me. She invited me into the living room, where Nate was cozying up with Lila while his dad asked her about her career. Nate's face when he saw me was pure gold, panic mixed with fury that I'd shown up. His parents acted like everything was fine, saying it was nice we could all be friendly post-breakup. That's when I realized Nate hadn't told them we split just 2 weeks ago. They thought our relationship ended months ago, which is why they were okay with him bringing someone new. I sat down and said there might be some confusion about the timeline. I explained that Nate sent me a breakup text 2 weeks ago at 3 a.m. and immediately jetted to Madrid with Lila. Nate tried to interrupt, saying I was mixed up on dates, but I pulled out my phone with all the evidence, the breakup text, his Madrid Instagram stories with my watch, everything. Lila's face drained of color as she saw the proof. She realized Nate had lied about our entire relationship timeline. I told his parents about the fake emergencies he used to get money from me. The $750 for car repairs, the $400 for bachelor party costs, the $300 for dental work, the $550 for their rent when his dad was supposedly jobless. His dad's face turned crimson, and he stood up. What the hell are you talking about? I was never jobless. We never needed rent help. His voice grew louder with each word, and Nate shrank into the couch. His mom asked what dental issues, since Nate never mentioned any to them. When I showed the text about dental money, she shook her head, saying, "This isn't real." Lila mentioned Nate buying pricey gifts for her parents the week before Madrid, a $350 scotch for her dad and a designer scarf for her mom. His mom asked where he got money for lavish gifts when last month he begged them for $1,000 for an apartment deposit, claiming he was broke. She started raising her voice. How could you lie to us like this? His dad paced, getting angrier by the second. So you've been taking money from everyone? From us? From her? While spending it on some coworker. Nate tried to interrupt, but his dad shut him down. Don't you dare talk right now. We raised you better. His parents are old school strict, and I could see where this was headed. His mom was crying, asking how her son could lie to their faces while buying gifts for another woman's family. What kind of person did we raise? She kept repeating. Nate panicked, claiming it was all misunderstandings and bad timing. His dad exploded. The son we raised wouldn't steal from his family. Nate tried to say it wasn't stealing because he planned to repay everyone eventually. His dad snapped, When? When were you going to pay us back? You've been lying for months. Lila asked how much money he took from others to fund their relationship. Nate said it was complicated and emotions don't follow financial rules. His mom screamed, Stop making excuses. His parents kept asking questions, getting angrier with each weak response. His dad demanded to know exactly how much Nate owed, and he couldn't give a clear answer. His mom was crying, asking if he ever planned to tell the truth or just keep lying forever. The yelling went on for nearly an hour. His dad called him a thief. His mom asked where they went wrong. Lila asked if anything he told her was true. And Nate just sat there, shrinking as everyone saw his true colors. His mom finally told him to leave their house and not return until he could be honest about everything. His dad said they were done giving him money until he repaid everyone he'd lied to. Lila said she couldn't even look at him and left without a word. His parents told him to grab his things and go because they were too disgusted to have him there. Nate followed me outside, trying to convince me I'd ruined his life over money misunderstandings. I told him his parents were right. He was a thief who got caught, and now everyone knew who he really was. Monday morning, Lila texted, thanking me and saying she was trying to figure out if she'd sent money that belonged to others. She felt sick knowing their relationship was built on stolen funds. Tuesday, Zara said Nate was put on leave from work pending an investigation. Policy violations and expense report issues were serious enough for immediate action. Wednesday, my mom called, saying Nate's mom had been reviewing bank statements all day. The son we raised wouldn't steal from his family. Nate tried to say it wasn't stealing because he planned to repay everyone eventually. His dad snapped, When? When were you going to pay us back? You've been lying for months. Lila asked how much money he took from others to fund their relationship. Nate said it was complicated and emotions don't follow financial rules. His mom screamed, Stop making excuses. His parents kept asking questions, getting angrier with each weak response. His dad demanded to know exactly how much Nate owed, and he couldn't give a clear answer. His mom was crying, asking if he ever planned to tell the truth or just keep lying forever. The yelling went on for nearly an hour. His dad called him a thief. His mom asked where they went wrong. Lila asked if anything he told her was true. And Nate just sat there, shrinking as everyone saw his true colors. His mom finally told him to leave their house and not return until he could be honest about everything. His dad said they were done giving him money until he repaid everyone he'd lied to. Lila said she couldn't even look at him and left without a word. His parents told him to grab his things and go because they were too disgusted to have him there. Nate followed me outside, trying to convince me I'd ruined his life over money misunderstandings. I told him his parents were right. He was a thief who got caught, and now everyone knew who he really was. Monday morning, Lila texted, thanking me and saying she was trying to figure out if she'd sent money that belonged to others. She felt sick knowing their relationship was built on stolen funds. Tuesday, Zara said Nate was put on leave from work pending an investigation. Policy violations and expense report issues were serious enough for immediate action. Wednesday, my mom called, saying Nate's mom had been reviewing bank statements all day. They calculated over $5,000 in loans and gifts he never repaid them. Combined with the $2,800 he took from me, this guy stole nearly $7,800 from people who trusted him. His parents are consulting a lawyer to recover their money. They're so angry they want him to face real consequences. The desperate texts stopped. The manipulation stopped. My phone's been quiet, and it feels incredible. Nate wanted to find himself? Congrats, buddy. You found out what happens when you steal from your family while thinking you're clever enough to get away with it. Hope that Madrid trip was worth losing everyone who ever cared about you. Update. He moved back to his parents' house because he can't afford rent without a job. They're making him pay rent and get a part-time job to start repaying everyone. His mom told mine they're tracking every dollar he spends until he proves he's trustworthy again. The guy who thought he was so smart is now 27, living under his parents' rules, working retail to pay back the money he stole. His dad makes him show receipts for every purchase.